wondering about the title of this video, not another case of fame? Welcome to another episode of the Reading Room Repose. I have you turned around today. If you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of a hummingbird outside of this window. Today I want to talk to you about the issue of feeling unmotivated, even when you're pursuing something that you really want to be doing. So for me, I know one of the culprits for my dissatisfaction or my feeling of unmotivation is the heat. Here we are in the dead of summertime. What do I expect? Summer brings warmth. But what I have found is that it was a lot easier to pursue what I call my passion projects and even this YouTube channel when the weather was nice and cool. That said, I was looking forward to the end of the school year, not because I wanted to rush through my children's life, but we all need a break from even that which we find encouraging or uplifting or our calling in life, so that we can pursue other things. We all have varied interests, and so I was looking forward to that. But now that I am in the throes of summertime, I find that I feel the weight of the heat and the humidity to be a bit cumbersome, and I have to do a lot in my mind to stay positive and walk through life without feeling like a cranky old lady and be grumpy with everyone that I encounter. So my passion projects, my creative pursuits take a lot more effort. Do you struggle with that? I would love to know the things that you do to combat it. How do you process? What steps do you take to work through that? For me, the three things that I have found that help me to overcome, to walk through, are to remember or find, I guess I would say, the beauty in the everyday. So even if I just see a pretty flower and I take a picture of it, I feel like I'm doing something creative. Secondly, to remember that I do have a loving support system, people that believe in me, and that's encouraging. And thirdly, I don't want to get stuck in another cycle of another case of fame. So for my number one, finding the beauty in the everyday, we are in the reading room. You're at a different angle. Normally you are facing the direction that I'm facing, and I have you turned around today so that I can show you some ways that I have found to enjoy the beauty of the everyday by collecting just some bits that I see throughout my walking through life. I'm not going to take the time to share them all with you, but you can see from my collection that I have a penchant for cones. I want to say pine cones, but there's all different kinds of conifers, so maybe they're not all necessarily pine. But this one I found and absolutely love. So whenever I see this, it gives me a jolt of joy. And then this one, you might have, if you've been following me anyway from the beginning, and if you haven't, go back and look at the introduction video, and you'll see actually the day that I found this when we were filming in Williamsport in the nice crisp winter time. I was looking at a holly bush, and I thought that it was odd that there was something brown stuck inside of it, and I pulled this out, and it was just an oak branch that had fallen from the tree above, and so it has four little acorns stuck to it, and the leaves have dried, so I take care of it not to crush the leaves. But I've always had a penchant for acorns, so that's on my, you could say, my inspiration windowsill, I guess. And I'll show you one more, which is this branch. I forget where I found this one, if it was on my property or if I was on a hike, but I loved it. I just love the shape of this branch and the cones on it, and that, I don't know, it brings me inspiration, it brings me joy to see it here. Secondly, remembering that I have a good support system, and it's not that I want to do the things that I do in order to impress them or to not let them down, but there is a sense of, you know, you have people behind you who are believing in you, so take the next step. And with that, I just wanted to share with you this beauty. This is a vintage Olivetti typewriter from the 1960s. I forget the exact year. I want to say 1968, but I don't know if that's correct. And for my birthday, back in February, my oldest son and his wife gave this to me because I had been going on about how my hero, David McCullough, wrote all of his books on a manual typewriter, and so I felt like I needed one too. And so this is a gem. I absolutely love the thought behind it. I love the color. I love even the smell of it. It's just a beauty. There's one caveat about it though, that it makes it a bit tricky, which is that Olivetti is an Italian company, and this keyboard is set up for Italian. And so it's not the normal keyboard that I have been typing on since I learned how to type in grade 7. So that's a bit tricky. I haven't been able to overcome that yet. So, you know, no piece of writing has been a true success. But that to say, it's still an inspiration to me. And I'm going to have an aside from my 3 things to remember to tell you something interesting about the Olivetti. So this is a book, and stay tuned because in an upcoming video in the next few weeks, I'm going to show you my schoolroom and talk to you more about the curriculum that I've used since the early 2000s, because maybe you or someone you know is interested in homeschooling or has homeschooled or is going to think about homeschooling in the future, and you might benefit from hearing about the curriculum. But that to say, this is one of the read alouds. A read aloud meaning that I would read to the children. And I know I read this book to the last 4 children. I can't remember if it was in the curriculum with my oldest child. But it's a book that I love, and I've been talking about it to a lot of people lately. It's called From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. So quite a title. Written by E.L. Konigsberg. She wrote it in 1967, and in 1968 it won the Newbery Medal. Newbery with 1 R. And what's neat about this book is that it takes place in and around the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And so I have been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art up until last week just one time, and that was in 2015. I took my 2 oldest sons there. And I don't remember looking for the bed. So the premise of this book is that 2 children run away from home, and the sister doesn't want to suffer. So she has the idea of running away to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And so they find a really nice bed and that they sleep in. Well, last week I took my daughter, who was turning 20 the day after we visited the museum actually, to the museum for her first time, my second time, and we found the bed that I think the children slept in. So I'm going to put the picture here so you can see how ornate it is. If you haven't read this book, I really recommend it, even if you just read it to yourself as an adult. But if you have children in your life, read it as a read aloud because it's very enjoyable. Obviously, a lot of things about the Metropolitan Museum of Art have changed since 1967. For example, it was free to get into the museum in 1967. For another thing, children were able to sneak in and stay there all night. I don't think you're going to have that happen today, but you'll enjoy it. But the reason I bring it up now is that they wanted to type a letter, and of course they didn't have a typewriter. And the brother says, well, where are you going to get the typewriter? And she says, from the Olivetti store that we passed on Fifth Avenue. So I just read this to my last daughter in April of this year. I received this in February. And of course, the Olivetti store jumped off the page at me. And I said, oh, I have an Olivetti typewriter now. So obviously I'd read about the Olivetti store numerous times over the years, but it didn't really stand out to me until I got this beauty. So there you go. If you haven't read this book, I recommend it. And then thirdly, the thing that I try to encourage myself with to get over this idea of feeling unmotivated or discouraged is this idea of not another case of fame. So what do I mean by that? There used to be a television show called Fame. Raise your hand if you grew up in the 1980s and you watched this show, or maybe you were an adult in the 1980s and you recall the show. Maybe you had fine arts loving children in your life who loved the show Fame. Debbie Allen was the dance teacher on the show. She was a famous dancer and choreographer. I can't remember what her character's name was in the show, but some of the students' names were Coco, Bruno, Doris, who was a hoot, Danny Armadillo, I think, or I might have the I know there was a Danny. I can't remember if I have his last name correct. But that to say, I loved that show. And I would dream about being able to go to a performing or a high school of the performing arts, which is where that show was set. There was no high school of performing arts in my area. There was one in Washington, D.C., which wasn't far away, the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, Duke Ellington School of the Performing Arts. I'm not sure if it's still around. I'm going to have to look into that. I probably should have done that before starting this. We'll put a little note on the bottom. So I would dream about going to the Duke Ellington School of the Performing Arts, and I would have it in my head about how I would go to the subway station, and I would take the subway down into Washington, D.C., and I would make all of these friends and just have a grand time pursuing theater arts. The closest I got to it was the summer school for the performing arts, which I think I've talked about in a previous video. If you want to know more about it, let me know, and I can do a whole video about my experience with the summer school for the performing arts. That to say, I don't want my artistic pursuits, my creative pursuits, my passion projects now at this stage in life to just be another case of fame, whereby I think about something, I dream about something, I want something, I like the idea of something, but I don't actually do anything to pursue that something. So even though it's hot and I can get grumpy from the heat and the humidity, I still want to make steps every day that will have forward traction on my journey of discovery. If you have any tips or ideas for how to overcome the feeling of being unmotivated, anything that has worked for you, please share them down in the comment section where I can benefit and we can all benefit. I do want to say that I'm really enjoying the aspect of making these YouTube videos that's brought about people in my life, making comments and just kind of meeting new people through that avenue. So I want to thank you. So as it relates to doing a YouTube channel, I want to thank you for being here. And it has been 6 months. I've only missed 1 week of posting a video, and that was the week of our homeschool evaluation, so got to be a bit busy. I feel like that's something to be proud of, an artistic pursuit that's actually found success. And so with this idea of reaching that 6-month mark, I'm going to do a live, what's it called? Just a live stream. So watch out for that. Put any questions that you have in the comments below that you'd like me to answer on that live stream. And hopefully you can join. And I look forward to getting to know you better through that avenue. Well, here's my outfit of the day. It's just a simple short sleeve black swing dress that keeps me nice and cool. I do wear shorts underneath my dresses, but I'm not going to show you that. My necklace today is one that I got from a company called Serve, which is a fair trade company. I'll put a link to their website in the description box below. I felt like I needed something on my neck though that added a little bling, so I just have a simple gold necklace and then small earrings. And my shoes are ones that I would wear if I wasn't really doing a lot of walking. They're my really high off the beaten track sandals, which I really love. Oh, and then my hat, because really right now it's too hot to get a hairdryer out. So there you go, my outfit of the day. Thanks for watching. You take care.